wider audience, and certain conduct is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Should any person not wish to be recorded, I advise they should leave the meeting room prior to any statements being made. Any defamatory statements made are not the position of council and remain an individual's opinion. Council accepts no responsibility for any defamatory statements, and all liability will remain with the person making those remarks. I might at this point call on Councillor Mark Sutherland to do the acknowledgement to country, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say Yama de Gomare, Bolabag Nyani Wunagalawa, Lambo Mari, Maramara, Ngale down. Yagi Yanbali, Garamari Sky, Gomare, Namlanginda, with Nalanginda, Wanangalawa. And that is the language spoken by our families and our communities here in Tamworth, making sure that we acknowledge the land that we're meeting on, which is a land that Gomeroi people have walked for thousands of years and still walk today, making sure that we pay respects to our elders who have cared and still care for this country. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. I will now ask all those who wish to stand to the meeting prayer, and we have two pastors with us tonight, but in the stand, Pastor Jeff Flynn will conduct the prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my congratulations on behalf of our council or you being appointed to the council. Almighty God, we humbly ask you to bestow your blessing upon this newly elected council. Direct and prosper its deliberations for the advancement of your glory and the true welfare of the people of the Tamworth Regional Council and Australia. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Councillors, we'll now open the meeting and go to the first item of business. Apologies on leave of absence. There are no apologies or leave of absence. We're all here tonight. I'll move to item 2 on the agenda, community consultation. Our community consultation, the first 30 minutes is set aside and made available for members of the public to address us on items that are in the business paper. So the first person I've got listed here is Mr. Peter Gill to talk on 5.1. Mr. Gill, if you want to come to the podium and talk, please. We normally have 3 minutes for your presentation, as you know.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move a suspension of standing orders. It came about, I had prepared a 3-minute talk by 4:30 this afternoon, and I got some late information coming from members of the reference group, University Reference Group, which I can either incorporate or leave out. I could do it either by one talk of 3 minutes and then do another one, but it's probably more, makes more sense to incorporate it into
Mr. Gill, how much extra time are you seeking?
about 1.5 minutes.
Would I have...
I'll move.
Yeah. Seconded. All councillors satisfied? Okay, you've got your 4.5 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff and visitors, I speak against item 5.1 as presented. At the outset, I wish to be very clear that I fully support a university for Tamworth, and I acknowledge and commend the work behind the scenes in getting us to where we are now. The issues I bring to attention involve transparency and accountability. For whatever reason, the meeting annexures were not released until Monday, impacting available preparation time. The MOU, struck in June 2021, has been expired 16 months since June 2023. Funding, circa $30 million, has been secured. However, the state funding is subject to a sunset provision imminent in this financial year. Point 1.1 requires that UNE option securing appropriate premises made available to UNE for at least 2 years at peppercorn rent. At point B, financial implications, it states, there are financial implications, however these will be reported back to Council where required or including in existing operational budgets. At point E, it says this falls under Focus Area 3, Prosperity and Innovation. Questions arising from the points above are, What is the time frame? What facilities are proposed to be utilised? Is there a budget, or is this an open check item? Where is any budget for the university activation shown in our delivery plan 2023 to 25, our annual plan and budget 2024-25, and statement of revenue policy 2024-2025. Additionally, I've received approaches on behalf of several members of the reference group who were hampered by the late release of the meeting paper annexures. They advise the reference group have concerns UNE has been walking back on the scope of courses promised. The mayoral minute has been framed without input from the reference group, who were unaware of it until yesterday, Monday. There has never been any discussion about establishment of English language training for immigrant workforce in Tamworth region. TAFE currently carries out that function. Tamworth Regional Council has been disengaged with the development of the UNE campus for many months and the proposed construction of the Tamworth University on the old velodrome site. The building DA and site subdivision of the velodrome site are still not complete. UNE has as yet not been able to commit to the courses it will teach in Tamworth, excepting for 2 courses. Regarding the budget costs, assuming Peel House, I would expect relocate 2 floors of TRC staff currently located there. The cost of rental space for those staff somewhere else, cost of any refit, refurb or fit out, the cost of any additional IT service provision or connection, and the cost of commercial rental foregone for 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Gill. I'll now call on the second speaker on item 5.1, Jude Oates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and public. I'd like to preface, I'm actually speaking on item 5.1. I'd like to preface my address with the assurance that I wholeheartedly support access to all types of tertiary education in regional rural areas. After reading the proposed MOU, I've had a few points that I'd like to raise and a few questions I'd like to pose. Surely the activities of UNE Tamworth to be financially sustainable and resilient is not the responsibility of TRC, that belongs to UNE. Does the airport precinct require advice, support and guidance in connection with training, education, etc., with one flying school in residence, plans to expand and possibly a second commercial venture? I think not. Is it the responsibility of TRC to secure premises for use by the UNE? And what consideration is given to the commercial returns following that initial period? Should TRC be responsible for securing appropriate resources for UNE and their students? What are mutually beneficial activities? What are the financial implications for TRC? I believe many of the proposed activities are neither sustainable nor equitable. Universities have their own funding sources. Seeking financial assistance from local government in any form could ultimately result in a financial burden to ratepayers. Many of the the commentary preferred supplier or key provider around the proposed program delivery indicates exclusivity. Does this impose a commercial advantage on UNE? Will it remove other tertiary education options for Tamworth and surrounding regions? And proposing a joint scholarship fund, I ask why, how much, how will selections be conducted? Will this extend to other education institutions if requested? In closing, I'd like to leave you with some further points and more questions that I urge you to consider when making your decision about the proposed MOU. UNE has paid peppercorn rent for the Peel House building for many years, enabling it to have and build a presence in Tamworth. UNE were gifted the old velodrome site in 2018 by TRC valued circa 5 million, and TRC funded the site rehabilitation. Plus the state government provided 26 million for the building, approximately 10 million for the federal government for research and places. And I just have a question, what actual dollar investment has UNE personally made in their university project in Tamworth? And as a reminder, more recently there has been significant uproar around council potentially selling community-owned assets, including Walsh House and the old information centre, etc. The proposed use of Tamworth TRC community-owned assets at peppercorn rates and promoting through advertising for the benefit of a single organisation does not meet the pub test for me in terms of community accountability or transparency. In the essence of equity, equality and inclusivity, this MOU imposes a likely situation that is unsupportive of options for the tertiary education landscape in Tamworth and the greater region. Can there be increased transparency with the community being kept updated on proposed course development, business and student needs input, timeframes, as well as the progress of this building? Does the MOU as it stands provide a commercial advantage of UNE against TAFE, community colleges and other providers? And I finish with saying I apologise if it sounds like I do not support an MOU. I do, just not this one as it is, where on the surface I'm having difficulty identifying the give and take of a mutually beneficial partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy Coates, for your presentation. They're the only two items listed in the consultation. We'll move on to item 3, councillors, minutes from the previous meeting. Submitted for approval. Could I have a move and a second, please? Move Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Mears. Anyone got any questions? I'll put that as being a true and correct record. Last meeting, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move to item 4, disclosure of interest. Is there any disclosures of interest? Councillor Renfrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thought long and hard about this, but item 5.1, as I am a school careers advisor, so I advise students on whether or not they should attend UNE for studies. I'm a proxy member of the UNE implementation group. My employer is a member of the implementation group, and I've also advised through the Vice Chancellor's office for the last 7 years on UNE matters. So a non-pecuniary, but probably significant interest, and I would request that I would leave the room for the vote.
Your call, Councillor Renfrew.
And I would imagine out that door. Yep.
Any further disclosures of interest? There being no further disclosures of interest, I'll go to item 5, the Merrill Minute. So, Councillor Renfrew, if you choose to read the minute, now's your time. Councillors, I will move the Merrill Minute, and I understand that it is as read. And I will just make a comment that whilst it's not legally binding, it actually provides a solid basis for us to continue and develop the partnership that was talked about some years ago when we as a community said we need to do whatever we can to try and get a university presence in this city. We are one of the only regional cities without a university presence. I understand what some of the concerns are that have been raised, but I'm moving the recommendation. I don't need a second. I could ask, is there anyone wishing to make comment or speak against? Personally speak against?
I'd like to make a comment if I can.
Comment?
A question, actually. Do we have any indications of cost? There's been issues raised with regard to cost. Do we have any indication of cost over 5 years at all, Mr Mayor?
How much it's cost us?
What it will cost us or could cost us, just this memorandum of understanding for starters.
This is a 2-year memorandum. It's a continuation of the last one, but I might ask some support there from the General Manager on that.
Through you, Mr Mayor, councillors, the comment in the financial section is really about whether council decides to take up some of the initiatives that are identified in the MOU, like community scholarships and so on. The UNE was to occupy any of our facilities to deliver their courses, and we're talking about things like sports science out at the Sports Dome, potentially equine veterinary courses out at the ALEC. The utilisation of those facilities for the delivery of those courses seems entirely appropriate. If there are any costs associated with branding and so on for those areas, they would be fully at the cost of the UNE. The cost of council may be the foregoing of the otherwise commercial lease of those premises to deliver those courses. So that's why they haven't been identified explicitly in the report, is because it will depend on the courses that are rolled out. And as one of the speakers actually mentioned, UNE have not actually told us yet exactly which courses they are going to deliver in Tamworth.
Councillor Sutherland.
Just another question, Mr. Chair, and that was in regards to, I understand that this whole process has had reference groups and input from the community. Just some insight into what the processes look like and their involvement to get us to this point.
So the Tamworth Reference Group was the community group that was originally formed to help lobby and advocate for the university presence in Tamworth. They were a very active group and did a terrific job. They went to Canberra, spoke to the federal government when we were looking for additional funds from the federal government. There was then a steering group set up, which was a joint committee between the reference group, members of the reference group, Tamworth Regional Council and the UNE. And that basically handled all of the process right through to when the UNE was ready to start construction of the facility, so the development application process and so on. And now there is an implementation group that has been put in place. So the previous steering committee, it was sunsetted, and we've now got a new committee which is really just driving the implementation phase, which is the construction of the facility.
Further comments, Councillor Porter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following on from Councillor North's comment regarding, or question regarding financial implications, it does state, as you would see in the business paper, that some of the activities agreed to in the MOU will have financial implications. However, these will be reported back to Council where required or included in existing operational budgets. So I guess the question was, is there any idea of what costs Council could be responsible for and the amounts? And is this a responsible path to take?
Can I answer that question?
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, again, some of the discussions with UNE around courses that Council itself would actually want to deliver, and the broader community as well. It could be things like we've been talking about planning, certifications and so on. So if in fact those courses were delivered, there would be a cost to Council obviously to participate in those courses. It was correctly pointed out, there is no, and Mr Gill I think pointed this out, there is no explicit line item in Council's budget at the moment for any of these costs. And only councillors around this table can authorise the budget adjustment for us to participate in any of those activities. So at any point in time, unless it was just staff training that we were participating in, if it was any other kind of support or any other expense or subsidisation or anything else was going to be provided to UNE, it would have to come back to Council for ratification.
Just, Mr Mayor, just moving on, an extra items F, G and H have not been, I don't believe have been met or appear to have been sidelined and or are now irrelevant, e.g. the airport. Should this MOU be reviewed in light of that? And next question, in relation to the subdivision of lot 73 and the title to the proposed new parcel has not yet been transferred. When the original agreement was made in March 2019, and as this matter has been dragging on since March 2019, can this be added somehow to Council's business paper as a standing agenda item with progress reports published to the general public on this significant project? And finally, can councillors, can we be included in the invitation to the UNE Tamworth Implementation Group to ensure that accurate and effective communication can be distributed to relevant stakeholders?
First of all, we are part of the implementation group. We have representation there. Secondly, if you're referring to the survey of that site, that has been somewhat held up owing to some complications with Essential Energy. And I don't know whether the General Manager wants to offer
Mr Mayor, so the subdivision plan has been completed. You'll recall, Councillor Ryder, the previous council granted an extension for the transfer of the land through to December of the current year. So that will definitely take place within that timeframe. The subdivision plan has been lodged. We're awaiting gazettal the establishment of the lot for the transfer to finalise that. In the interim, as the landowner, we've granted the landowners consent, as we do with many DAs on community land, for them to progress the works that have been undertaken down there so far. The other matters you referred to around, deferring this MOU, I think the MOU provides a framework. It is not in any way legally binding on council. It provides essentially a base for us to continue the conversation with UNE about the future provision of courses and so on. There was a mention of the English-speaking courses. This was something that council was involved in, providing a direct linkage to our 3 abattoirs who use a lot of immigrant workers. And the idea there was, given the proximity of the abattoirs, that the surplus training rooms in the pilot training facility, which aren't being utilised, could actually be used as a base for the UNE to potentially deliver English courses to immigrant workers in those facilities. So this is an ongoing dynamic conversation until such time as a role of council is to create these connections between the UNE as an educational institution and local businesses who will potentially sponsor people and pay for people to undertake courses that are of benefit to their local operations. That's really the purpose.
Answer your question, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to say that it's quite interesting there's so many questions from a motion that's come to us tonight. We're hearing a lot of information tonight sitting here, but I'm not sure how I'd vote one way or the other, given the circumstances, and I think that we should defer this matter, have a workshop with those here, the working group, get a little bit more information and then bring it back to council.
Councillor Mears, we have an implementation group which we are involved in. That's the group we're involved in now, that's with the university. So we do have representation on that group.
The council's here to making a decision, haven't chat to them and ask those questions of them either.
Council needs to just make an amendment to defer.
If you wanted to have it deferred,
If I could, Mr Mayor, yes, thank you.
you can move an amendment to have it deferred if you wish to. Do I have a seconder for that? You wish to speak any further to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against the amendment?
I guess a question, Mr Mayor, in relation to the amendment. So if we did defer it, does that impact? Is there issues if we do defer?
Through Mr Mayor, no, there's no impact.
Probably not really.
No, there's no impact. This is a statement of intent. So all of the transactional activities around the transfer of the land and so on have already been resolved by council separately to the MOU. This is more about a working arrangement between our organisation and the UNE. If it's deferred, then council could workshop it and get more information and make a decision at a later date if they so wish. As was pointed out, it's been expired for 16 months. This was a request by the Vice Chancellor to reinitiate this now as part of the implementation group to say this is the way we're going to move forward. So,
Yeah, Councillor, I could just add to that, I guess it's not really going to hold anything up this just sends a message maybe to the university or to the business community that have been pushing for this university. So we just need to be careful of that. This is not a legally binding document or agreement, it's an MOU, it's a memorandum of understanding, and it's just a continuation, even though it has been expired for 16 months. But any further comments, councillors? Well, I'll put the recommendation that the matter be deferred. All those in favour say aye. Aye. 4. I'll put the recommendation that it stays.
amendment becomes...
Sorry, the amendment. Well, we haven't got the amendment passed yet.
They just voted on that, Mr Mayor.
We're for... Who is voting for the amendment? In favour of it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Who is voting against the amendment? 4.
So, Mr Mayor, to recall whether you're going to use your casting vote.
And I have to use my casting vote, and as I put the recommendation up, I'll be sticking with the Merrill minute, as I'll be voting against the amendment and I'll be supporting the motion. So we'll move forward now. We go back to the initial Merrill minute and any further comments. There being no further comments, I'll put the mayoral minute. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Thank you. Interesting. We'll move on to item 6.1. We have a notice of motion from Councillor Jeff Budd. Councillor Jeff Budd.
Thank you,
like to move
Mr
that?
Mayor. Councillors, if you can indulge me for a moment, there is a small correction.
Councillor Button, you just need to get a
A second, we have to have a second.
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to clarify that, if I can.
Okay, can we have a second for what's the second that Councillor stands? Councillor, so now you can talk about what you want to talk about and we can move on.
So as we're aware, we've had some technical issues over the last week with to and froing of emails and so forth. So when this motion was originally submitted, it was submitted as a dual motion, notice of motion by myself and Councillor Sharpham, and in the mix it's come back with just my name on it. Councillor Sharpham was to be the first speaker and I'd be the second, so if we can indulge that correction to be made and proceed that way.
Sure, that's not for the next one.
That's for the next one.
I'm reading the wrong one.
You are.
This is a great start. All done, back to 6.1.
Yeah.
Excuse
No
me,
wonder you're
we weren't able to hear.
Okay.
Hardly, those men just left because they couldn't hear anything.
Okay.
We can only hear a couple of the speakers.
The council will have to speak louder, but he has to address the mayor. He can't address the audience.
That's right, but the volume couldn't turn up a bit.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My correction will address 6.1 as in the papers. Mr Mayor, the motion reads that the Tamworth Regional Council form a working group to facilitate the creation of precinct committees within Barraba, Manila, Tingle, Bendemeer and Nundle communities. These precinct committees would then enable them to represent community issues directly to council.
Thank you, Councillor Budd. Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion. I've submitted the motion with the staff, and that is to include in the motion that Tamworth Regional Council establish the working group to facilitate the creation of working of precinct communities, as Councillor Budd has mentioned. And my inclusion is and initiate the development of regional precinct priority plans to ensure effective local input and clear accountability in addressing community needs.
Well, I'll ask the mover and seconder first. Are you happy to accept that addition to your motion?
There's no objection to the amendment, Mr Mayor.
I have no objections, Mr Mayor.
So the motion we're now discussing is the motion with those extra words. Is that up on the board?
It's up, button.
So councillors, again, is there anyone wishing to make any comments on that recommendation that's before us? Which can speak for or against Councillor Sharpen?
Yeah, I think it was very clear, as Mr Mayor, through the campaign, that the regional areas around Nundle, Bendemeer and Barraba were fairly missed out, and I think this would be a good way to give them the trust that they are part of the Tamworth Regional Council.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor.
I'd just like to follow up and comment on the same and repeat what Councillor Sharpen had to say. But it is important that the community realises that this has to be driven by the community. Once we establish this, it has to be driven by the community. It's the community's ideas. We need their input. We need great support. So I hope that occurs.
Thank you. Further.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just speaking to the motion and the inclusion of the what's roughly put in now as the regional precinct priority plans. Happy for that to change, but I think that gives these committees some real teeth in being able, for local communities to be able to identify needs and aspirations for each community, and then to have that as a strategic document or a formal plan that can have clear lines of responsibility, you know, talking around resourcing, what they might look like in the future and timelines within the actions outlined. So rather than having a committee to discuss these issues, but really create something that can be reported back to council and reviewed periodically to make sure that we're moving towards a future which these towns deserve.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I certainly support the motion by the Deputy Mayor to establish committees to empower our smaller communities and better enhance communication between those communities and council. I am a little, was missing information regarding the authorisation of it. Would it be under section 355 of the Local Government Act? And obviously workshop would probably identify that particular part of the legislation that would empower those. So I guess I'd be assuming that potentially they could be a bit like the old 355 committees we did have for those smaller communities. Would that be fair to say?
I think the intent was to have similar committees, but not bound by the administrative requirements of the 355. And that's what causes so many issues in the past. The 355 committees are enshrined in a bunch of bureaucratic legislation and administrative requirements, and we found that the 355 committees around the regions were starting to struggle to get people to get involved because there was too much too onerous a task to understand it all. Councillor Rohrer, I think the idea of this was to perhaps go on a very similar pathway, but without actually being a 355 committee as such.
Just to finish off, Mr Mayor, I'd be absolutely keen to see that at least 2 councillors should be appointed to each of those committees, rotated biannually, at least every 6 months. So I guess all the communities get the opportunity to see their representatives, 6 months of the year twice through a council term. And I'd like to see any terms of reference for each committee should be given, should ensure that a genuine voice is provided to those communities and direct link to council with less bureaucracy, like you mentioned, that was existing under the 355 committee. And ultimately, I'd like to see that the committee members should be drawn, obviously, from each of the community and ultimately selected by the councillors based on their EOIs.
Councillor Rod, I think we'll probably have some further workshops to actually identify a implementation strategy, and I think that's the mover and the second is the intent. Would that be correct?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll now move on to item 6.2, and there was an intent, I think, for Councillor Starkman to be moving this recommendation. Councillor Starkman, would you like to
Speak on it now or just
recommendation?
Move it.
I'll move it, yeah.
You could stand.
I'll move the recommendation.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Budd. Do you want to speak to that recommendation?
Yes, as you're aware, Mr Mayor, we've had a few IT issues this week, and as a result, Councillor Budd and myself weren't able to communicate that well. But as the way the Walsh House was a very contentious issue in the community, and as we can see with the people coming to see here tonight, it continues to be, and Councillor Budd and I wanted to be able to get educated and invite the new councillors as well. So the sentiment of having just the new councillors wasn't to exclude anyone, but it was just to get ourselves educated and find out what's happening with Walsh House. But
Thank you. Was there anyone wishing to speak against that recommendation? Councillor Mead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Despite what Councillor Sharpman has said, I firmly believe that there's a deliberate attempt to exclude elected representatives, and I think that's completely undemocratic. We talk about there's communications issues. We were sworn in 2 weeks ago. The motion went on the 16th. Not a single phone call to anyone that's not on that list, as far as I'm aware. I certainly had no notion of it until it came up in the minutes. Even since then, the only approach I've had was Councillor North spoke to me yesterday at our training and at 3 o'clock this afternoon. There was no discussion on the content other than we're not trying to exclude you. I don't tend to take people at their words much these days after the last couple of months. The motion also says there's a heavily misrepresented, the issue's been heavily misrepresented in formal and social media circles. I'd like to ask what that misrepresentation was, given that no one has asked me my position on Walsh House. No one has asked me what information I've been privy to or not privy to. As I said, I think it's a distinct way of trying to isolate elected officials that have, in Councillor Rodder in my case, have about 43% of the population that speak to us and put us into council, and to have the current council try to isolate us and the voice of those people, I think it's appalling. We talk about transparency of information. We've tried to raise that for about the last 5 years, 2.5 for me and Mark longer, about openness and transparency, which has been none on this motion. Not a single discussion on anything in relation to that, and I'd like to know what biases have come. The only bias I've had, and I've spoken to the General Manager about this since the election and prior, I'm not of the opinion to sell Walsh House. That's not my decision, it'll be Council's. So if that's bias on this, I'll let my hat. The information I've put out publicly was, I think it needs looking into. It's not a bias, it's an opinion. So I'd like, if possible, for someone to stand up and tell me what those biases are. And again, I think it's nothing more than keeping Councillor Rodder and myself, the Mayor, Councillor Sutherland from participating in that group. We've been involved in this process for a good couple of years now, have knowledge, have residents that have contacted us. Some are talking through their hat, some have genuine concerns, some have expert knowledge, and some are ex-staff members of council. So they're prepared to come forward if we open this workshop up to the general public.
Thanks, Councillor.
As I said, we've talked for so long about openness and transparency. That's been defeated on several occasions in this chamber over the last couple of years, and I think this is another motion that supports that failure to be open and transparent with the residents and with the councillors.
Councillor Mears, I think the full intention of and what I've read into it anyway, is that this was a motion to allow the 5 councillors to that haven't been on council, haven't been able to get all of the information that yourself and myself, Mark, Councillor Rodder and Councillor Sutton have been given, to get that information. If you wanted to change the change the notice of motion's recommendation, you can move an amendment if you wish.
Okay, I'll move an amendment that all councillors that wish to participate in this committee have the right to do so.
Is there a seconder for that?
Second.
Councillor Rodder, do you wish to speak any more to that?
Mr Mayor, could I just make a comment?
Yes, can I? Sorry.
Just that the amendment doesn't actually change the motion, because the motion does not say that anybody's excluded. That's right. When you vote on the motion does not include the supporting information. The motion is the motion as it reads, which means that when council actually does nominate for the committee, that would be the time to address it and to put forward the additional council.
Well, the motion says newly appointed councillors.
No, the motion
it
says
doesn't.
that the
Okay, well, that's the comment.
working group to review the Walsh House issue and be able to facilitate a report back to councillors for information. Which is nothing about new or existing in the motion.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. So what it looks like to me, and what the potential intention was, is not a working group, but workshops. That's what it seems like to me, that's what's required. I mean, it reads as working groups to review that, but wouldn't it be best if we amend the motion to reflect that, to bring all the new councillors up to date on the information that's available, that was made available to the previous council, that we need a workshop or a number of workshops rather than a working group.
Councillor.
If I may speak, Mr Mayor, thank you. There is no intention in any way, shape or form to exclude anybody. Supporting information is commentary I've made as a suggestion. The intent is to create, my view was, and I'm at the hands of all my colleague councillors in relation to how this outcome comes out. My intention was to give clear airspace to allow a fair and impartial view to the new councillors who have not got the information that you've all got. Nothing more than that. In terms of whether I've consulted you or not, or consulted other councillors, that's not correct. That's just your perception. I have in fact spoken to other councillors, but as you pointed out today, you and I don't have matching phone numbers to call each other, and I've spoken to you at my first opportunity. But additionally, this matter was aired in social media. There's been no attempt to contact me or Matt Sharp and have that discussion in relation to the matter. So I refute the fact that the allegations we're trying to exclude people is not the case. I'm more than happy for all of you to come along. It doesn't concern me. The issue I had was it created another level of transparency for the new councillors to get a nice full briefing so we could be in the same position as you. I have no position on it. It's a suggestion, it's not part of the motion, and I'd recommend that councillors the motion stands. However, I would consider changing of the word from working group to a workshop, as suggested by Councillor Robb. To a workshop for all councillors that wish to attend. Absolutely no intention to exclude, as I said.
As a motion, Councillor Sharpen.
Mr Mayor, I'd be happy to change that to workshop.
You'll second that?
Yes.
So we've now changed the words of that recommendation to a workshop. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Roller.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, when I read and apologies to the Deputy Mayor, when I read it, I construed it as thinking it looked a bit undemocratic that we were, that a number of councillors were not going to be invited to that working group. But this makes perfect sense. No issues whatsoever with any of the new councillors getting information about that building. I mean, moving forward, everyone knows my view about Walsh House. We should be doing what we can to find ways of getting back in there. But that's something that we could talk at another future workshop. Options or future notices of motion. But certainly, this is far more palatable to me that we go down this path to provide all of the new incoming councillors with the opportunity to understand what information that former council was presented with.
Further comments, councillors?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, for me, this is simply an opportunity for new councillors to catch up on the information that they need to be informed. There was a lot of garbage and rubbish floating around the election campaign. We all know that. I think you're on another planet if you didn't hear what was going on. But also an opportunity for pre-existing councillors from the last term to maybe rediscover new information that they may have missed the first time around. Given that the content was quite deep, as a human being, it's probably impossible to remember every single minor detail that was made available to the previous councillors. So there might be some opportunities for those councillors to pick up on where they left off from last time, so that we can all then be as informed as each other, with an opportunity to make the right decision eventually when the time comes.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke.
Yes, Mr Mayor, there's been discussion at the table since then, since that amendment went up, that we'd like for that to actually reflect to say workshops, plural, as opposed to workshop. I'd be happy to move an amendment for that, but we may be able to avoid that if Councillor Sharpman was happy to agree to that.
I'm a little bit confused.
So to change the wording for there from workshop to workshops, plural, just to reflect that we might need to do multiple workshops for this.
When we do have a workshop, if there will be need for others, it'll just happen. We will do that at the first workshop. You can. It's up to you. I don't mind.
That's fine, mate.
Even in the second, it's up.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, happy to change it with a plural.
Okay. Well, the second of the motion. Are you happy with that? Okay.
Thank you,
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Sutherland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I must comment that I do have reservations around this notice of motion, but my reservations aren't coming from a place of the feeling of exclusion, but more from the place that I was a part of a council who spent hours and hours in workshops and many conversations, having access to all information available to make an informed decision. The decision that we made as a council is the decision that council supports, and to have workshops to review that information to find new information could be interpreted as some kind of endeavour to find flaws, or even could be seen as some type of witch hunt of the old council. I understand the community's interest in trying to make sure that all of the information is accurate and the right decision was made. And for that reason, I'm happy to support the recommendation, because I think that level of community transparency is what the community is looking for. But my reservation does come from the fact that a lot of time and effort has already gone into understanding the information that is available and came to an informed decision. And I think that decision should be respected, but also happy for new councillors to catch up in that space and review that through due process.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. You've already.
This is a pretty major thing. Obviously, there's going to be moving forward right through this council period. And I just want to be clear that for me personally, it was about getting up to speed. We've missed out on most of this information, and the information's there, but as a group, it's good to get together, do it. With fresh eyes was our thinking. And all respect to the last set of councillors, because they've put a lot of time and effort into it. We understand that. But we're newbies to this, and we just really need impartial, fresh eyes. And there's no slight on the previous council. Please take it from me.
Thank you.
Councillors, I think we've all spoken on the topic now. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll now move on to item in open council reports. Item 7, there is no environment and planning reporting. Item 8, infrastructure and services. We have 8.1. Could I have a move and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Impey. Councillor Sutherland, do you wish to speak that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor.
Just a quick one, Mr. Mayor. McMahon's Bridge. I haven't actually driven across that bridge. Is that a timber bridge? Is that one of the last couple of remaining timber bridges left in our local government area? Or is it just a bridge that needs to be replaced, to be widened, or for you, Mr. Mayor?
I might ask Mr. Director. We'll take that on notice, Councillor Impey.
Yep. And I guess the point I want to make was, I think the councils of the last 3 or 4 councils, I think, since amalgamation, have replaced somewhere in the order of 60 plus bridges over that time that were timber bridges and are now concrete bridges, and I think councils of the past 3 or 4 should be applauded for that.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? No more comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll go to 8.2. Could I have a move in a seconder?
I'll move it.
Councillor North, seconded Councillor Brooke. Councillor North, you wish to speak to that?
No, not at this stage.
Anyone wish to speak against that? Any further comments on that? There being no comments, I'll put the recommendation in item 8.2. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we move to item 8.3. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Butt, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Butt, you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments? I'll put 8.3. Oh, sorry, Councillor Impey.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of the Manila Christmas Carnival, I would encourage all councillors to attend that Manila Christmas Carnival. I have attended it many times in the past, and it's an event that the Manila community, which is very well attended, do appreciate, and would certainly appreciate seeing more than 1 or 2 councillors attend if they were able to.
Thanks, councillors. No further comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move to 8.4. Capital Works Program Waste and Resource Recovery. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please?
I'll move that.
Councillor Brooke, seconded Councillor North. Councillor Brooke, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Sutherland.
Just a question, Mr Mayor, and this is probably to the director, and that is just some reassurance that the transfer, $615,000 is significant. In the transfer, just to get some reassurance that that will not have a significant impact on the Waste Reserve's ability to perform in the future or the near future for capital works projects.
Any further comments, councillors? There are no further comments?
Sorry, that was a question.
Oh, sorry. I was reading something. Sorry, Councillor.
All right.
Mr Mayor, I can assure the council that whilst $615,000 is a significant amount of money, the Waste Reserve can accommodate that expenditure at this time.
Further comments, councillors? Further questions? I'll put that recommendation then. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move on to item 8.5. Could I have a move and a seconder, please? Moved Councillor Budd, seconded Councillor Impey. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Budd?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Impey.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I think we should be encouraging, where possible, as many events that come to our region. As we do know, when people visit our region, they enjoy what they see, they like what they see, and in some cases they might actually move here, as I did way back in 1992 when I visited Tamworth for an event. 32 years later, I'm still here. Having as many people come to our region as possible, to stay at our motels, to eat at our restaurants, etc., is always a good thing, as long as the figures stack up, and my view in this case they do. So I'm all for attracting as many events to our region as we humanly can.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Mears?
Yeah, I'd just like to read a statement of Councillor
Impey.
I'm sorry. Unlike Councillor Impey, who was brought here with sport or for a visit, I was actually brought here by the police. In a good way. I was an administrative radio operator at New South Wales Police, and thankfully in the long run, they moved the radio room from Lismore to here, and they gave us 2 days to visit to see if we'd like to come with. I think one of the glowing memories I have of that time is, I think it's because we were unfamiliar with the residents, that whilst we walk around Shopping Worlds and Peel Street, people said g'day. It was just a really welcoming place to come and visit. And I think everything we can do to encourage either sporting groups or other groups to come into town, they will realise what we do to this a wonderful place to live, and hopefully we can encourage more people to come.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors?
No, I just pay credit to those that I'm all for business, so the staff and the people that brought this to Tamworth is brilliant, because another $500,000 of money into our economy and a minimal investment. So all credit to those that have managed to organise this.
Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll move item 8.5. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move to item 8.6. Mover and the seconder. The mountain lights. Aye. Councillor Mears, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Wish to speak to that, Councillor Mears?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Further comments? Councillors, further comments? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, will now move to governance, strategy and finance, 9.1.
Moved.
Moved Councillor Rodder, seconded Councillor Sharpen. Councillor Rodder, do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Only that it makes perfect sense to not re-sign on for that organisation. Yeah, as identified there, it has been the numbers of councils involved has reduced dramatically, and the costs have increased dramatically. So that's a good decision.
Council, is there anyone wishing to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments on that recommendation? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. councillors, this is a matter that's been dealt with to a large degree by previous council, but comes to us for discussion. 9.2, Wallbrook boundary adjustment. Could I ask someone to move and second that, please? Move Councillor Brooke, seconded Councillor Mears. Councillor Brooke, you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Could I have some further comments on that recommendation? Councillor Sutherland.
Sorry, Councillor Rodder. Just a comment, Mr Mayor, to say that this is a great outcome for the Walbrook community. Visiting the Walbrook community the last term, I know that this boundary adjustment's been a conversation for multiple years, and the fact that one side of the river of Walbrook is in Walker Council and the other side was in Tamworth Regional Council was impractical and unfunctional, and some of the town found really problematic. And so I want to make sure I credit the staff for putting in the amount of time and effort and consultation with the community of Walbrook. But, Mr Mayor, I think this is a great outcome for the people of Walbrook, who should find it easier as a township to work collectively and connected to the township and the council of Walker. Thank you.
Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Rodder.
So a bit of a question, Mr Mayor. So just so we're confident that I think there was only about 3 properties and property owners involved in that, the transfer, is that correct? And just making sure that they're all happy.
About 30.
30 altogether. And was there any objections?
Councillor Rodder, I along with, I think Councillor Sutherland, went up to Walbrook. We met with all of the community and along with Walker Council, and the community up there were very keen for this to happen. They've been pushing for this for a few years. If we go back to the previous council, not the previous council, the previous one before, Walker came to us with a proposal which actually encompassed a whole much larger area, and we were opposed to that because of some of the implications in terms of road funding and so forth. So it died, it became dead in the water. This time round it was narrowed down to properties that were affected with the community of interest being Walker, not Tamworth, and the fact that Councillor Sutherland said the township, half Walker, half TRC, divided by a river, it just seemed a sensible outcome to do this. But I can assure you that every member of that community up there is 100% supportive of doing this. So really what we're doing is supporting that community up there and supporting their wishes. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Mears.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate what Councillor Sutherland said, that I'd like to thank the staff, amicably led by the General Manager, Mr Paul Bennett. This is something that's been on the table off and on for quite some time, and to get this result, I think, for the residents and for ourselves is very good. I did joke the other day that I'm a bit concerned about the gerrymandering, but other than that, I think this is a great outcome, not only for the residents, but also for the council.
Further comments, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour of 9.2? Aye. Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move straight to item.
Voted against 12 votes. God.
Sorry.
There goes, I voted to get rid of 12 votes.
9.3, can I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Impey, seconded Councillor Sharpen. Councillor Impey, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr Mayor, although we need to vote in a councillor. Point 4, point against.
Councillors, we've got a mover and a seconder. And,
Or we've got a mover, I think. Haven't got a seconder yet.
Councillor Sharpen seconded it. Sorry. There is a item there in dot point 4 where we can appoint a councillor as a councillor representative to this audit and risk committee if any councillor chooses to put their hand up. So, you wish to speak to the recommendation and nominate yourself or anyone else?
Oh, no, I won't nominate myself. I think it meets during school time anyway, so it probably cancels me out, but yeah. I think.
Councillors, I will, before I ask anyone to speak against this recommendation, is there any councillor wishing to put their hand up as a councillor representative on that committee? Councillor Sharpen? your,
You're always gonna
do we have any other councillors wishing to put their hand up to be appointed to that committee? We can have 2 or 3 or 4 and we can have a vote on that.
She says one councillor.
No. We can have a vote on which council is going to
Votes, Mr Mayor.
no, we only on who's the councillor. So we have one nomination.
Just a question, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Oh, we do the nomination first, or?
Pardon?
Oh, yeah, just ask the question and you can make me sit down. Just wondering, and I'm very happy for Councillor Sharp to be on the committee. It's a very early start on a Thursday morning, was it? About 8 o'clock. And many of us are unable to attend at that time. I don't think there'd be any objection, but for our learning experiences as well, would there be a possibility that where we are able, that we could go along and have a listen?
I think we're only allowed one councillor to that committee, and I'm pretty sure.
As an observer?
Through Mr Mayor, yes, as an observer.
Yep.
We also have the chair of ARIC comes and also briefs the councillors in a workshop on the activities of the ARIC every year, but certainly councillors are more than welcome to come and observe how that committee functions. Being a finance person, I find it the most exciting committee that we have as council.
In fact, the stuff we did yesterday was the first time I've been actively involved in finance, so I actually quite enjoyed it, so it's a good opportunity.
Any other nominations for positions on that committee? If there isn't, Councillor Sharp, it looks like you're the one. So councillors, anybody wish to speak against that recommendation with Councillor Sharpen being the councillor appointed? Nobody wishing to speak against that. Any further comments on that? Councillor Impey.
Thanks, Mr.
You moved the motion?
I moved it, yeah.
So if you speak now, you close the debate.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, well, I'll wait.
Any further comments, councillors? Councillors.
I'll make a quick comment, Mr Mayor, just around the importance of this committee and the work that it does and the role that council members play on it. So I'd like to wish Councillor Sharpen the absolute best. I know that the previous councillor, who's also in the room, Councillor Judy Coates, done a fantastic effort in that, and the role that councillors can play can add so much value into it. Although we're not voting members, I think that it's a great way for us to make sure that we completely have a ear on the ground on the work that's happening, and especially from a risk and finance perspective. So, thank you.
Thank you, councillor. So I'm going to put the recommendation. We haven't anyone speak against that.
No, I just wanted to close the debate.
No.
No? Okay.
There was someone that spoke against it.
Oh. No one's spoken.
Normally, I'll give you a leeway this time. Normally, unless no one speaks against the motion, you can't close the debate, but I'll let you go today.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I just wanted to applaud Councillor Coates as well, so you stole the words out of my mouth. And also congratulate Councillor Sharpen, but also mention I didn't know Councillor Mears was so interested in actuarial studies, because there's a lot of numbers in that. And as we know, actuarial professionals work in numbers and risk. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
We did a workshop.
Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move there from that one to item 9.4, transfer of reserves to unrestricted cash.
Just, councillor, before you move and second this recommendation, just note that there was a slight wording error in the second dot point. Obviously, we'll be transferring the money back to the plant reserve as opposed to back to unrestricted cash. So we've just corrected that in the motion that is up there.
So councillors, move in the second.
I'll move.
Move councillor
Right.
North, second to councillor Mears. Councillor North, if you wish to speak to that.
Can I speak to it?
Yes.
I just want to reassure everyone that there's a simple accounting practice here for to balance and it's accounts, and it's well commented there. The commentary explains it quite well. So it's simple financial accounting in the end of the day across financial years.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Anyone wish to make comment? Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Impey, who during our training yesterday, diligent as ever, discovered that slight miswording of that section that we've just amended and did pick that up, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? If there are no further comments, I'll call
Hang on, Mr Mayor.
Oh, sorry, councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just so, like, obviously this, I've been around long enough to see that this happens. Is there any way of actually raising this with state and federal governments, that issue these grants to try and speed the rate of payment up for when they announce them? And because it's not fair on small communities, on local government, that they have to frequently do this, and we wouldn't be the only council that would do it. But to then have to wait, significant amounts of time for the cheque for those grants is just wrong. Is there some way that we can raise that with?
Councillor Rodder, we could raise it, we could write to the Treasury, or we could write to government. I can assure you that Country Mayors has already done that in the last 6 months, because quite a number of councils around New South Wales are on the verge, and they're struggling because they're not able to do some of the work they need to do because of the very issues that you raised. So that has been raised at Country Mayor's level. It's been a submission put in by them, but if you want us as a council to do the same, we can. I don't know that it'll do any good, but we can.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Further comments, councillors? Councillors, there being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We move from there on to item 9.5. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Impey. Councillor Sutherland, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on the recommendation? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We'll move to item 9.6, annual operational plan. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Brooke, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Brooke, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on that recommendation? There being no further comments, I'll put 9.6. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move straight from there to item 9.7, annual operational plan budget variation report. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Budd, seconded Councillor North. Councillor Budd, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, is anyone wishing to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on that recommendation or the report? There being no further comments, Councillor Mears.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just like to thank the author, Laura Mills. Over the last 2 days of training, we've significantly gone over some of these financial situations and issues, and it's been made extremely clear to us how the process works. I think even our new councillors were impressed by the level of detail that we went through, and it was even an eye-opener for some of us older people too. So it was a really, really worthwhile workshop, and it certainly puts us on a good path moving forward with our finances.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we'll now move on to item 9.8. I'll have a mover and a seconder, please. Move Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Budd. Councillor Sutherland, do you wish to speak to that?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Councillor Brooke.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I note the recommendation on this item is to allow no restrictions on the General Manager delegation outside of the functions expressly prohibited from delegation under Section 377 of the Local Government Act. I was originally planning on moving a motion that this item of business be deferred to after the Christmas break to give councils a chance to review this fundamental document, the relevant legislation, and consider developing potential councillor reserve functions that can not be exercised by the General Manager. Discussion with my council peers, however, has made clear to me that no significant appetite for review outside of the recommendation currently exists, so instead I'll simply speak against it and let it come to a vote. Mr. Mayor, let me say that this is in no way a personal reflection against Mr. Bennett or his capacity. My objection is coming from a place of my belief that we ought to strive to have as much of council business as possible placed on the council agenda and therefore open to the public, and be determined by elected councillors.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Impey.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm by no means a corporations expert, but I do know that a general manager or a CEO of any organisation is entrusted to perform a function under his or her employment contract. And I have seen absolutely no evidence over the years that I've been involved, and that is 5 years in the council before the last one, where these exercised functions or delegations have been in any way performed in a or performed incorrectly. So I have no problems at all with this. I think if we were starting to make changes and adjustments to this, well, then it would simply slow down processes, and that's probably not a good thing for anyone, particularly businesses who come here to Tamworth or exist here in Tamworth already who are keen to do business. But don't forget, all of the work that the General Manager does perform eventually comes out in reports that are very transparent to the community, and if there is any wrongdoings, I'm pretty sure it'd be discovered in a report. So I'm quite happy to go with the recommendation.
Further comments on the recommendation? Councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I understand the spirit in which Councillor Brooke actually made those comments just then, because ultimately we are responsible to the residents and ratepayers from decisions that are made. So I understand, that we probably should have more responsibilities and vote on more things in councils, like I've seen plenty of smaller councils do. But just in relation to there was one bit there, reference, now I'm only being pedantic, but it mentions in dot point 2, refers to section 68 of the Noxious Weeds Act, which was repealed on the 1st of July 2017. Unless I'm speaking about the wrong act, but it's become the Biosecurity Act, I understand, 2015. Should that be updated?
I'll have to take that.
Mr Mayor, I'll defer to my governance expert.
Yeah, so that was just carried through from last time. We will update that act and check with the relevant directorate in relation to how it's to be worded.
That answer your question, Councillor
Thank you,
Rodder?
Mr Mayor.
Further questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to close the debate, we'd just like to say that this recommendation delegation to the General Manager follows best practice within local government here in New South Wales. Making sure that General Managers are giving worded in, saying that full delegation, and then removing those authorities to make sure the councils have, or councillors have, the decision-making power is the better practice than naming all of the individual delegations and potentially missing out one. And so the best practice is to say that we give open access, bar these things, rather than the alternative. Under the Local Government Act, there are clear delegations that the General Manager cannot have, and that's clearly within it, whether it be the sale of land, the increase of fees, a number of powers that are purely the responsibility of councillors. I think that's really well established in the report. And so I believe that the delegation that we're allowing is for the best operation of council to run smoothly in the best manner possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. Further comments, councillors? No comments. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? No. Councillor, you want the division recorded there? No. Councillors, we'll move on to item 9.9, governance structure. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Budd, seconded Councillor Impey. You speak to that, Councillor Budd?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. The governance structure as it stands and the requesting to carry it over has served as an efficient and effective model for councillors in the community, and I commend the motion. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments, councillors? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move on to item 9.10. Councillor Engel, please. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Councillor Sutherland, second to Councillor North. Councillor Sutherland, do you wish to speak to that?
I will just quickly speak to it and say that The commitment of a councillor is something that is quite significant. I think overlooked in the previous item was the governance structure, and talking around the workload of councillors here in Tamworth Regional Council is significant and above the bare minimum of other councillors. And as a working councillor with a young family, I know many councillors in the same position. To make these positions attractive at all to people who work full time is a challenge. You know, to be able to make sure that there is a level of interest or even a space to be able to attract people who work full time into this space is made somewhat easier by having annual fees throughout that term. So what I'm trying to say is that there's been many years, many decades where councillors have lobbied for an increase in pay here in New South Wales. New South Wales fees are somewhat less than other states, and I think it's in the best interest of all local government to be able to make sure that there is some incentive beyond the best interest of the community to be able to sit in and apply for these roles. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against that recommendation? Further comments on Councillor Mears?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, I don't speak against my fellow councillors. It's an individual decision.
If you're speaking against the recommendation.
I might make a comment instead. Would that be better?
Well, just take your seat for a sec. Is anybody wish to speak against the recommendation?
Mr Mayor, I'll speak against the recommendation. Look, we've not long ago as a council, sent out rate bills with an increase of 18.5%. I think that the residents of our region want us to have some empathy towards them, and I think that they would think that this is a bit churlish. That on the one hand we've put out our hand for 18.5% for in additional rate income, and on the other hand we're going to say we want another 3.something% for councillor allowance. There's nothing wrong with the existing amounts that are paid to councillors, and I think at this moment during a cost of living crisis, I think that we should show some leadership to the community and reject this request.
Councillor Mears, did you make a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, my comments were very much in line with Councillor Rodders. I didn't want to speak against it as such because it's an individual decision by our councillors. I do say that the same thing as we previously imposed that severe or heavy rate increase on residents, and I personally, in that regard, feel I let them down, so I wouldn't really want the pay rise. However, I do recognise what Councillor Sutherland says, the hard work that everyone puts in, and I'd, I guess, like to foreshadow a motion at some point that we either have a workshop or something similar, because of this huge nature of the job which we've been alluded to in the last few weeks, is that we, if we can, somehow look at making the mayor's position in such a large council possibly a permanent position, if that's at all possible under the legislation. So I think that would be a more beneficial thing to Tamworth. And as I said, I'm not opposed to my fellow councillors voting for the pay rise, but I certainly will be voting against it. Thank you.
Councillor Mears, I think under the legislative standing of the way councils operate, we have mayors and we have councillors. You can't actually, by law, make a mayor permanent as such.
For the population based, is it, or?
No, it's just
rate of remuneration for extra hours.
That's true, Mr Mayor. Even the Mayor of Sydney City Council isn't considered to be a permanent employee. They just have different ranges of fees that are payable to them. We have seen other jurisdictions, Queensland in particular, that have done a major review of the councillor fees and so on. A similar sized council in Queensland to Tamworth, the Mayor would be probably on around $200,000 a year. Councillors on around about $120,000 a year. So they have certainly done it in a way where they recognise that it is indeed a large commitment of time, but New South Wales has not followed suit. In that regard, we are bound by the determination of the tribunal. We cannot operate outside of that. They set the minimum and the maximum amounts, and you have to operate within those. You can't offer any more than the maximum amount that's been determined.
Thank you.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Law.
I just wanted to comment on the fact that to me it's in line or along the lines of the wage rise that was handed down for July 1 for most employees. I would like to, for me, I'm well behind. It's not. I don't do it for the fee. I'm so far behind. It's not funny, but yeah, it's irrelevant. I would like to back up Councillor Mears with his thoughts with regards to the mayor's remuneration. I know it's a fee, and I know it's fixed. I don't know what we can do further. Whether we can ride away to the local government, local government or office of local government. Sorry, because it's a significant position. We've got a major business, really, turning over $280 million. That's significant. There's a lot of responsibility there and a lot of time. So I'd like to see, personally, a larger increase for the mayor somehow, but I don't know how we go about that. So just putting my 2 bobs worth in, I support your concept.
Thanks, Councillor Law. Further comments? Councillor Clark.
Mr Mayor, thank you. If any indication can be had by the first 2 weeks since we've been sworn in, the hours that council is going to be required to put in is extreme. No one on this table volunteered to be a councillor with the expectation of having any decent income, but I'm more than aware that in my personal situation I'm okay, but I'm more than aware that we have people at our council table who have young families and they have their own commitments, and I don't think anyone in the community would expect them to have a personal cost involved in their role serving their community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ricky.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well, I don't think I've ever met anyone who said that being a councillor is an overpaid role, because as we generally do know and understand, it's not a role that you perform for any monetary substantial gain. In fact, it won't bring me any closer to retiring, I can assure you all of all that. I did my sums when I was on council last time between 16 and 21, and I worked out I was paid about $2.05 an hour. That's well below the minimum award. So I state the case that it's not a high-paid role. We are a regional centre. There are 23 other regional centres within New South Wales who have a population of 40,000, 20,000 people, I think it is. And we aspire to perform our function as a councillor to ensure that our communities are well represented as best as we possibly can, and that's certainly how I undertake this role. So I'm quite proud and honoured to be a representative of the communities that we serve, and an allowance as opposed to a salary, which was mentioned on social media. I can assure that social media person it's not a salary, it's an allowance or a fee. This is a role that I undertake for the reasons that it's not financial, but more to support and assist the community and ensure that we can grow and flourish.
Further comments, councillors? There no further comments. I'll put the recommendation as printed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against?
No. No.
Carried. Councillors, will move from there on to the next item, which is 9.11. Council policy register. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move, Councillor Wood. Second, Councillor Sutherland. Would you like to speak to that? Councillor Wood.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I would like to move this item with an amendment, if I could, which to assist staff I have previously sent through. That amendment would be to add a third point there to adding the text, develop a policy and or protocol to guide councillor interactions with developers, applicants and community members in regards to planning matters, particularly during the development process.
So, Councillor, that's now the motion. Who's seconding that? Councillor Sutherland, you happy with that?
Yes.
Anyone wish to speak against that motion?
Does councillor want to speak to it? Councillor Brockers will speak to it.
Do you want to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So we've just come out of an election period where Councillor Rothers previously proposed but not adopted transparency and accountability policy of adopting a register of interactions between councillors, developers and lobbyists was a key issue amongst residents wanting to see some sort of policy implemented to safeguard against corruption. So I asked, what was the intended goal of that policy? It was to stop councillors talking to developers about current developer applications. I have heard complaints from my colleagues in this new council about other areas of Councillor Rothers' previous proposal, but everyone states they agree that the desired outcome is appropriate to work towards. That's why I'm taking the opportunity of the General Policy Register coming up for review to raise this amendment. Let's start the process now of putting in an internal policy or protocol to make clear how we should go about conversations with developers. Let's put those safeguards in place, and as a council, we can continue discussions about a register and about a lobbying policy as a separate matter.
Anyone wish to speak against that? Further comment, Cora? Councillor Sutherland?
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to note that the General Policy Register was put on public exhibition prior to this council taking form, and that during the process of it on public exhibition, it received no submissions from the public around any areas of concern. There were quite a few policies within that document, and it was a serious read going through it. Those policies, as we know, now become if adopted, will become the policies of council and will shape the direction of staff and the organisation moving forward for the next 12 months. I'm in full support of the amendment or the motion and the inclusion of developing a policy register. I think that serves a great purpose that can make sure that councils can work transparently, especially in a place that has generated a lot of conversation within the community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lee, you wish to speak?
No.
Further comments, councillors? Councillor Ryder.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I certainly support that addition, and a small step in the right direction for transparency and accountability. And I'm sure that we'll see more of that in the near future, whether it's by this council or initiated by this council or councillors of this council or the Office of Local Government. And I think it's good.
Further comments, councillors? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move to item 9.12, local government conference nominations. Will I have someone move and second that? Move Councillor Impey, seconded Councillor North. Councillors, we will need to nominate some councillors here to be voting delegates, and of course others that might wish to attend put their name forward. So do I have any nominations for voting delegates to attend the conference?
I'll have to nominate.
Councillor North. Councillor Budd. Any other nominations for voting delegates?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Budd is already a voting delegate.
Oh, sorry, you are. You're the deputy. Yeah, sorry. Other nominations for a voting delegate? Councillor Cook.
That's for attendance for 3 days, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Attendance for 3 days?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just clarify for that, for Councillor North, your attendance is really only mandatory for the sessions where the motion's being considered at the conference. You can be there for the other plenary sessions if you want to be, but certainly for the business of the conference.
Yeah. You fine with that? Yep. Any other nominations?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, look, I did ask in our workshop whether I'd be able to attend from just on the Sunday from midday, because I have work commitments on Monday and Tuesday. On the Sunday.
Okay, we'll notify. We can go as a part.
As a voting delegate, Mr. Mayor?
No, just as an observer.
As an observer. Who else?
As an observer, please, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sharpen. All three would like to go as delegates. So you're only going for the Sunday?
Yep.
Yeah, that's all you go. What about you? You go for the 3 days?
I'll confirm the days soon. Just want to clarify with work, but
Just that when we book in, we've got to pay, so to make sure that if we are going, we're paying, we are going. And so we've got, so councillors, it looks like we've got myself and Councillor Budd, we've got Councillor Brook and Councillor North as voting delegates, and we've got Councillor Sharpen and Councillor Sutherland as other nominees, and Councillor Hempy to be attending on the Sunday. So, councillors, any further comments on that?
Can I just comment on again bringing a great conference to Tamworth with significant numbers, significant financial contribution to our local economy, and all hats off to the administration staff for bringing that in, and the Mayor for bringing that conference to Tamworth.
Councillor North, would you like to move that recommendation with the name included?
Certainly, I'd like to move that.
Someone like to second that? Councillor Mears. So, any further comments on that? There being no further comments, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, that brings us to an end of that session. We go to community services. There is no community service reports. We go to item 11, reports to be considered in closed council. Before I call promotion to move into closed council, councillors, members of the public, I'll ask, is there anyone wishing any of the items in closed council to be brought forward into open? No. Mr. General Manager, do we have any matters?
No, Mr Mayor.
Could I have someone, Councillor Rodder?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask, first of all, we dealt with a lease in relation to the mountain bikers in open, and why that first item of proposed lease for the Girl Guides in Hillview Road, basically, wouldn't be in open as well. But the second question I wanted to ask before we went in there, can we at some stage in the future have a workshop about the future plans for that parcel of land?
Yes, we can. Take that on notice and do something about it, but I might ask the General Manager to, or maybe... comment on that.
That's a very good question, Councillor. I don't know why. I mean, if this hadn't been a commercial lease, it was being used for a commercial purpose, I would have said that was the reason. I know we haven't got those yet. So the question was asked in open council, so I'm answering it in open council. Councillor Rudd, it's a very good question, and I just reading through the report again there at the moment, there would be no reason why council couldn't consider that in open council, in my opinion.
Oh, it did seem strange.
That's up to council. Whether they want to move it.
So, council, it's up to you whether you want to move it.
It's still online.
Back into open, if you want to move that into open council or not.
Wait, everybody's left.
But everyone's left.
Can we put that into the open section in the minutes? Is that possible?
All resolutions go into the open.
Okay, yeah, sorry, they do. Yeah.
So, councillors, are you happy to leave where it is for the...
Would we move the report into open, though?
Well, we can go through that process if you want to, but either way, you're happy to leave it where it is. It's not going to make any difference.
Well,
And I'll be much more diligent moving forward, councillor. Seriously, I'm not really sure why that was put into place, councillor.
So, councillors, I'll call for a motion to move into closed council. Good on one. Thank you, Councillor Mears. Second to Councillor Both. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? So we'll move into closed.
You get name on those things, it justifies being here.
I'm in the pay book. I'm right at the end here. They put me right at the back.
Nobody out there, PK? Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council, this is a recorded the closed session of the ordinary council meeting held on the 22nd of October 2024. In closed council this evening, you considered 3 items of business. For each of those items of business, you adopted the recommendations as per the business paper.
Do I have a motion to accept? Councillor Mayor, second to Councillor Sharp, and all those in favour?